Good morning. How are you?
I'm so happy I get to hang out with you.
Yeah.
It's the great start to my day. I get to go to the lake today. And
Awesome.
with a new friend. She's like a walking friend. We've been doing our little workouts together and stuff. And I think we're going to start lifting weights together. And
Oh,
we
I
have
love it.
the same age. So yeah, we're just going to take the teenagers, and she actually has a little one too. So yeah, it's going to be so fun.
Oh, that's perfect. You look gorgeous. You're always glowing.
Well, today's a happy day. I'm fasted. I get to hang out with my friend, and I get to hang out with my friend here. So I'm good.
So, good morning. I have here I would consider you one of my best friends. You are a kindred spirit for sure. This is Emily Harveaux. Did I say that right?
You did it. You did it.
Okay. Emily Harveaux, I can't remember when I first came across you, but it's been years. And your transformation is incredible. And I was taken back by that, but I was most taken back by your bright personality. You are the example of we have to choose happiness, like happiness is a choice. I even talked to my husband once about you. I was like, do you think she wakes up like that? or do you like take a moment to like switch into this mode where you're like, I'm choosing happiness, I'm choosing joy? I imagine it's probably a mixture of both, but I know you've had your share of hardships. We all do. Your story shows that. And so could you just take as much time as you like to share where you're coming from, your background?
I mean, you're asking such deep questions and deep issues. And I mean, one thing is just that being in community with kindred spirits, with people who are dealing with their own journeys and who are being honest with themselves, like that in and of itself is so energizing to me. And so I think that, certainly we've been able to spend a lot of time together in environments that are very conducive to that. And that's because the environment that you create, that we're given this passion and this vision. And so you have created a really safe place for people to be their best and to show their best. And so definitely my best shows up when you show up and you give us these opportunities to have this experience, and of course I'm speaking to your retreats, but this is true in our friendship and our relationship on these calls, that they are just incredibly open to vulnerability. And so I think that's the beginning. And that once you have sort of been through those vulnerable moments together, you understand that background, then there is greater capacity for joy, for to accept unconditional love from each other. And that's just kind of how it has felt in our connection and our friendship. So yeah, I think that, do I wake up this way? No, I do not. This comes, the spark and the energy of connection. I just light up when I connect with other souls. And, especially when it's people that are humble and people that are just willing to share their heart. And so some of us just are able to do that really quickly. And then that makes a huge difference. But I definitely have ups and downs. I think that, the people in this space or at retreats or at conferences, you guys see me at my up, because that is what like fuels me and energizes me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's just fun when we bring out the absolute best in each other. So
yeah, totally. I would definitely say that I'm in my element at my retreats. I don't get a ton of sleep on those because there's so much detail, but I have so much energy because I'm like in my element, and I can definitely relate to what you're saying for sure.
It's like you wait, those moments are going to happen, and they're going to happen, and you have the anticipation they're going to happen, and then you show up and you're like,
Yeah.
You get to taste these little morsels and this sweetness. And it's so interesting because even like the food, like our journey, both of us have been such a journey with food, and food being the healer. And it's food within a context of a healed terrain and a healed environment. And that's what I love, is that the people in this space that are creating community through the online, through the coaching, through the retreats, through the, whatever it is that they're doing, through, reverse, gathering us all together, and, all these different things, like, you are enhancing your terrain. And so this is your in total environment of feeling that connection and love and support. And then food is that healer. It's like the foundational healer, but there's so many elements that play into this personal journey. And yet we're walking this journey together as well. So we understand each other, because those of us who have put down money or traveled across the world or spend their life trying to talk about food as a healer, you've made some big decisions for your own life. You've come to a spot of personal responsibility. And but it's just like, it is so powerful how it happens in community. I was just talking with Philip Meese yesterday. It was so fun. And, he's high fat carnivore. I'm high fat carnivore. We do that for mental health as well as, all the other reasons and healing reasons. But he was like, I couldn't have my company without the community. And like, he was part of your story way back when, all the years ago, and so it is like, we do have something really special and unique and powerful. We are small and mighty right now, as those of us that are meat-based, animal-based. There's not a ton of us. There's not a ton of us that are out there just talking about it, recording about it, offering retreats, but it's just such a special thing that of the mind, body, spirit connect, and having that nutritional piece as a foundation for it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Philip is he's so awesome. I actually considered working for him when I was homeless or almost homeless and looking for work. And I was like, I need somewhere to live. So he was like, yeah, I talked to my wife, you can live with us and work for us. So I almost became a Carnivore Bar employee. And then I met Tyler, and I, lived in his bonus room for a while and got my certification. But that will always, even though I didn't take the opportunity, the fact that they offered it to me speaks volumes to the type of people that they are. It's incredible.
Absolutely. This is amazing. I remember that when, let's see. So, we've got some of us that are in Europe. We've got a lot of us that are in Australia. We're worldwide, right?
Yeah.
And there was this somebody that I did an interview with a while back who was carnivore at the time. I don't think he is, Joey Schwartz. But he was in the process of doing like a Europe move. And there was my friend Rena was over there at the same time. And she's like, have him come and stay with me, so it was just so cute.
I know, right?
Yeah. The mothers that were like looking out for this young man, like, oh, we want to make sure he's okay. And, so it's just kind of fun to see that. Yeah, literally they offered for you to come and live with them and work for their company when they were a startup. They had nothing.
Yeah.
They had all.
Right.
And so the fact of what we're willing to do for each other is this community.
I know.
Pretty phenomenal.
I will say that I am way more inclined to trust a fat burner versus a sugar burner. Like, once I became fat adapted, I was like, I'm never dating a sugar burner again. Like, he has to be fat adapted. And that sounds crazy. I know people are like, what? But seriously, if you've experienced a difference, me burning fat means I don't have ADHD, OCD, depression, insomnia, anxiety. Like, those they left. And if I were to run on sugar and carbs all the time, they would probably come back. And I just see this now in people, like, your ability to compose yourself and manage stress and be productive and focus. I'm not saying that I'm judging anyone who's burning primarily glucose. Like, I eat carbs now. But fat adaptation and metabolic flexibility is really important. And I see this in toddlers, like little kids. What are they eating? Well, why are they throwing tantrums all the time? Maybe it has something to do with what they're eating. So yeah, I'm more inclined to trust someone who is doing this way of eating, because it means you have been through this conversation with yourself and maybe others. The very realistic fact that what we eat defines not just our bodies, but like how we function as a person. And it takes responsibility and honesty and transparency and discipline. And those are characters that spill into other areas of our lives. So I just find a lot of us are more trustworthy. I'm not saying trust everyone who's a carnivore, not at all. But I would be more inclined to trust someone who made that
it helps you get to a deeper level, and it helps you, there's less to sift through,
right.
because food is mood, it directly affects mood.
Yeah.
And so I think that was I wish that I knew more about that. A friend of mine actually had asked me, because I have my kiddos, a lot of them I have been dealt with their own issues with anxiety, Asperger, just, have had some like issues. And then as it's been them going through their adolescence has been, and so as a mom, you just want to help them so much. And I remember this friend, and this was when I was morbidly obese, and was completely addicted to sugar, It was just in the throes of that. And I knew that I was doing it, knew that I was going to it for my emotional needs, but it's like, you should really look at the effect of gluten and what that does on the brain and what that does for brain health, because I had a teenager that was going through some crisis and his brain health issues. And so I was like, really? So, I mean, I love that this is becoming more and more, and, like Chris Palmer has that book about brain energy. We're realizing where our energy source comes from is like a huge impact on our literal thoughts. And so, getting this pathway cleaned up for our thoughts helps us to think straight. And we still have a lot to unravel, and we still have a lot to observe in ourselves. And
Right.
It's like a journey of release is what it feels like to me, a journey of becoming an observer of your circumstances, of your reactions.
Yeah.
But I feel for me in my past, I was so much more reaction based.
Mhm.
When my blood sugars were up and down and up and down, and my food addiction was like this monster, it was like a master. It was my master. And so I still like have kinds of times that food can be a bit of an emotional crutch in some ways. But since I eat the right foods right now, and the foods that don't mess up my body and cause further havoc, let's put it that way. So if I'm going to have like an emotional eat of some kind, it's going to be animal, it's going to be fatty, it's going to be
Exactly.
carnivore foods. And it's not as big of a foul in my life as it used to be. I will have some consequences. Scale will go up a little bit, or, I'll have to kind of, I need to get back to my therapeutic fast. Those are so important for me. But it's just like a different take on it, and it doesn't cause further damage to me.
Exactly.
Like when I used to be so addicted to food and carbs, and those processed foods were in my diet, then if I would get on the binge or on the out of control, that just created its own cycle, and it never even allowed me to deal with my true issues and my true problems. And so now I'm able to deal with myself a lot better, and to just be honest about where I am in my journey and in my relationships.
Yeah, you are so well spoken, Emily. I just have to say that you are incredibly well spoken. I'm glad you have a YouTube channel now. So everything, I want to comment on a couple things that you said. I love that you said it allows us to be the observer. That is a perfect way to put it. So like being carnivore doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't automatically mean you make all the right choices, but it gives you a chance to look deeper. I feel like when I ran on carbs and sugars and even seed oils, my mood disorders were just so strong and in my face, especially the OCD and the anxiety. Like I don't even have a chance to consider the choices I'm making, and I'm not defending them. I'm just saying like it was almost an immediate reaction, the way I would bite someone's head off, or get depressed, or be overly sensitive, or be offended. That was just like almost just my nature, because I was so reactive, because my blood sugars were like this. Whereas when I'm eating in a way that really supports my body and my blood sugars are like this, I can observe the situation, and I feel like I can think for myself. When I went carnivore in the emergency room, I came out of there with a backbone, and I could go face this narcissist that I was with at the time. Wow. Before that, I didn't know how. I was just cowering. I was running like that. It's empowering.
Yes.
And it's a superpower. It really is. And then you said you were talking about like, it's not as much of a foul to your body. I completely agree with that. Like when I'm working with people with that struggle with emotional eating, and guess what? There are a lot of us, me being one of them, I give them permission. Like, if you really have to scratch an itch, then go get something that's a treat. For me, that's like going to Whole Foods and getting some flanken style beef ribs, or, make egg pudding, like make something that's out of the norm for you. And don't take it further than that, because protein and fat is pretty self-limiting. Like, it can give you some dopamine, but it's not going to be a hard drug that gives you negative effects. And it'll actually, I think that it actually becomes a teacher. It shows you like, man, I'm pretty full. Like, I don't think this is what I need right now. Whereas if you were to go get popcorn and ice cream, it would scratch the itch and it would make you feel like that's exactly what you needed, because there's no end to it. You're just a bottomless pit. And then your mood dumps, it tanks. So I just love everything that you said. I totally agree. Can you talk a bit about, I've seen your transformation photos. You were definitely overweight. I can't see whether or not you're morbidly obese in your photos. How long were you struggling with your weight, binge eating, emotional eating? When did that start? And how long did it go on before you made a change?
It was decades. It was decades of absolute slavery. And so when I think about that, I started overeating as a child. As early as I remember, I started overeating. And overeating sugar and carbs, and carbs and fat together, processed foods. It was my childhood was very tumultuous, and I was raised by a single mom, and we moved a lot. We moved every, several years. There was abuse, there was neglect, there was just a lot. And so I was very lonely. I was an only child until I was 7, but kind of these other, like I had like step families. So like I'd be in a different, like go to my dad's, and then there's siblings there, and then go back to my mom's, there was no siblings. And then, so there was just so much instability. The stability in my life were honestly my relatives. So like my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and they were amazing, rock solid, like had really strong faith. Like that was a huge part of the stability that I had, because there was so much instability. And in the faith communities, I'm sure you've noticed this, Rebekah, it's like food is not called out as an addiction.
Oh my gosh. I think it's one of the biggest strongholds that the devil has is, oh, let's go to these potlucks and be gluttons for the next 4 hours. Like it's definitely a stronghold.
It's a stronghold. Sure. It's a stronghold. And so, in this particular church background, the big thing at church was donuts. Like literally, I think the only protein was like some cheese. Sometimes there was a little bit of plate of like cheese or maybe some meats or something, but we literally like lined up at these, this like the dining hall or whatever. And it was a kind of an interesting church. It was more like the women served a lot and the men, led or whatever. And so the women would serve, but it was literally donuts and pastries. Like that was what the meal was like, this prescription for illness. Right.
Wow.
And so, but being the drug, like a drug feels good when you're using it. It feels like the most amazing, like your brain lights up. And so to me, I had the beauty of the faith, the music, the community, the fellowship, but it was all interspersed with this sugar drug world as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think I associated these things so closely. And my aunt, when I was sitting in church, would be, if you give me a kiss, I'll give you a candy.
Oh no.
And so no. This person, and these people that were my security, that I needed that security, that, made me feel so good, that it was always with that drug of choice coming with it, with the candy. And there was always the candy dishes at the fellowships, and the gatherings were always completely carb food oriented. Yes, there was some meat on there, but it was very small, everything else that was happening. So I developed this like secret love, security with food from a very young age. And then there were lots of times I was away from that environment, and that I was with that I was lonely, that I was kind of on my own, and that I was kind of given like, well, watch TV. My friend was like TV shows. And so it became TV shows and food, like those became my friends. And so the continued throughout, so it's always overweight, and the weight was just kind of gaining. I did some like cheerleading, dance. I did things that kept me kind of active, but I was still doing, at the cheerleading games, we would do Reese's and Diet Coke.
Oh man. Wow.
What we were subsisting off of.
That's crazy.
I know. You have like this friend group that is like, you treat it as normal. It's like, yeah, this is just what cheerleaders eat. We eat candy bars and Diet Coke. That's how you get to be a cheerleader.
It sounds like some bodybuilder influencers these days. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was, teens. I had gotten to be overweight. I thought this was horrible when I got to 200 pounds. I'm 5'8". And when I got to 200 pounds, like, that's it. I'm going to do something about it. And so I went on my first organized diet. I had done some other diets in the past, like Dexatrim, and I had done some pills, diet pills and things like that. And so I did a program at a church that was, and it was all based on getting actually it was nutritionally, it wasn't that bad because it was based on whole real foods, but you counted calories. And so it worked. I got down to 150 and met Joel. And so, cause I was just, I wanted that relationship. I wanted that partner. And so to me, I was like, I'm going to have to get skinny to find a partner or whatever. Oh. And so when I met him, I was just healthy and feeling good, was eating healthy foods, but I didn't understand. I was still so pulled to sugar. I still had a lot of secret binge. Like I remember we would have Hershey's syrup, and I would go and just drink the syrup straight. Yeah. And so but still, like, there was something in my brain that when I wanted to release from stress, or just that hit, is like literally an addiction, that I would go and secretly binge. But when we were still, when we were first dating, we'd be around town and everything. We were in Spokane, Washington, and people would be like, Emily, you lost so much weight. And like, Joel's like, right with me. I'm like, me. You don't need to talk about it. Like, you're just making me look bad. Like, and he knew about it, and he, our relationship didn't have, it matters to your attractiveness, but I think that we had gotten pretty darn solid. But I was terrified of gaining it back, because when we got married, I was 157. I remember that weight or whatever. And so I turned to Weight Watchers to try to control it. I've always been trying to control it and fight it. It's just been like this pull, that I did not realize that the food itself was a huge part of the problem, not the only problem.
Right.
And so it took me, so I did dieting. I did a lot of programs in church. I did it was called the Weigh Down Workshop. That was honestly kind of a fasting program. I didn't recognize it at the time. It's kind of like a spiritual kind of a thing. Turned out to be a cult. So whoops. I stuck with that one for like 5 years and was a leader in their group and all this.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was so crazy. And yeah, there's a documentary about her brand on HBO. So it was really wild to go back and watch that. Like,
so crazy.
In that. Yes, the wild roads that we took to,
wow.
So that was more in my 30s that I was doing that. But, I kind of gave up on dieting, which I'm glad I did. When I was about in my early 30s, I started having kids. I was like, I am done stressing about this. But I didn't understand about the food addiction. And so I didn't understand about the carb addiction. And so basically with every child, I'm glad that I released myself and just gave myself that self-love. But I also didn't understand how to be healthy and how to fix the problem with my literal body. And so I started gaining big amounts of weights with pregnancy. And so then I have 4 kiddos. And so with each pregnancy, it would get higher and higher, and I wouldn't lose the weight. And so I would start my next pregnancy be at my top weight, having not have lost it. And during that time too, it was just like toddlers. And I thought that what they needed was more food. Like we were talking about with little kids, if they're having like bad behavior or meltdowns, like, oh, they need food. They need food.
Right.
I was like constantly like grazing is sort of toddlers graze, toddlers and kids, they do graze, but I thought that was what was healthy for them too. And so I was thinking, I had it in my head about the blood sugar, but I didn't have it in my head about what happens when you give them certain foods. And that, because I fed them like lots of like graham crackers and these big bins of things I get from Costco that was like, oh, you can have some graham crackers and you have some protein with it. But it was still, the proportions were way out of control. And so that I was gaining as I was feeding my babies that I did not understand. And so I had gotten up to 300 pounds, which I had to look at that BMI. I was absolutely struggling. I was having energy struggles, sleep struggles, mood struggles, just activity. I was unable to be the active mom that I wanted to be. And so that was a lot of my struggle and with that. And I had gotten so desperate by the time I was in my mid 40s, I was up at 300 pounds again. So now it was a new threshold. Remember when I was back in my 20s, like, oh, 200 pounds is so awful. Right. And now it was like, okay, now I'm 100 pounds heavier, and knew that I was kind of an older mom. I didn't start having kids until I was in my 30s. And then I had my last baby when I was 41. And so just looking at this, like, I might not be around. I was feeling some really weird symptoms. I was scared to go to the doctor. I did not want to. I was having dizziness. I was having weird, like, foaming at the mouth kind of episodes. I was having a lot of breathing constrictions. It felt like there was something that was starting to go wrong with my heart, really, but I was just terrified. And so my last ditch effort was I was going to do a surgery, and I had gotten the referral to get surgery. Now I know now, Rebekah, that surgery wouldn't have actually solved the problem at all. I was just in my mind, it was like, if I got a sleeve and I couldn't, that will maybe help me be around for my kids a little bit more. And this was in 2017. I had had an injury because I'd been trying to exercise, but I was a very heavy person exercising and ended up tearing a meniscus. I think it was like too much pressure I was trying to do like CrossFit sorts of things at a super high weight. Yeah. And so that landed me like, no, I couldn't get off the couch at all. I was stuck on the couch for a long time. And this was when this thing was coming out with Dr. Fung's book, The Obesity Code. And a friend of mine on Facebook that I had been really close with, she just was like, just don't do the surgery. Just try this one more time. She's like, I think this is it. I think it's hormonal. And she's a very scientific person. And so I was like, I'm going to listen to her. And so I read that book, and I did finally understand it. It was the foods cause hormones. And so those are signalers. The food is a signalers. That book wasn't as strong on that, although it had an element to that, because he definitely promotes a low carb type of approach. But it was just the fact of that the whole weight gain, the whole way that it goes about it, it all has to do with the insulin hormone, and that how therapeutic fasting was, and that fasting was not a dangerous thing at all. That when we take our hands off and let the body heal, that it is able to do that, and it can do that. And so it brought me into a fasting kind of a practice. So that was a huge component. And it was mostly fasting that I got from about 300 back to down around 200 was through doing therapeutic fasts. So I was doing extended fasts. I was doing alternate day fast. And I would definitely work in some intermittent fasting as well. It took a while before I decided that I was going to change the signaling coming from the food, because I didn't believe that. I wanted fasting alone to fix it. But what fasting alone did not do, okay, the healing that came when I was on my fast and was feeling so amazing and had gotten things restored, things were starting to feel better. But the healing that didn't come is it didn't fix my relationship with sugar, carbs, and food. I was still actually very stuck so my fasts were great, but when it was time to eat, I was in trouble.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds like total bondage. I've definitely felt the same way with my ketogenic diet. I was like, near the end there, I was really addicted to the junky keto treats, like the Atkins nasty chemical laden keto treats. And I would do fasts, and it was relief from myself. It was just like, okay, permission to not worry about this for a minute. And then, but when it was time to eat again, like you said, I was in trouble.
Yes.
So when did it click, that you really had to change all of that?
So it's funny because I was getting results. I was looking good because I had started at, gosh, my sizes up there. I was getting to 3X, 4X. I'm pretty tall. So, but I was, I want to say I was about size 26. Like I did not even know that sizes got to 26. And it was just, my clothing was starting to become tense. And so it just felt so discouraging. And I felt like I could, look pretty or wear colors, which I'm not sad that I did that. I'm glad that I did that. And I was actually in a fashion group on Facebook where we posted our outfits. And so what's nice is that I do have some pictures of that because I was posting my outfits, and so I still love the attitude of like, wherever you are, dress beautifully, wear colors, like enjoy your beauty. Like your beauty is so much more than your size. But what had happened with the fasting journey is my size was starting to feel normal. Once I had gotten down to that 200, I think I was 18s or 16s. I was like, okay, I'm starting to just feel better and feel like I fit in. The click for me was that I still was struggling with, around 190 or something like that, which I just say the weights just because I know women think about that. It's historically, we can kind of track, where we were doing with what that. Yeah. And so that's the only reason I really refer to that at all. I really do not care about a scale weight at all. But it was Christmas time of 2020. That 2020 was actually a really good year for fasting because for me, I was doing my own thing. And so sometimes social situations are the tricky part when you're doing fasting, you're doing carnivore. We really do have to negotiate that social world. So the pandemic for me was nice because I kind of could focus and I didn't have as much of the, but what I noticed that Christmas time is that I finally admitted how enslaved I was to keto treats. So I had transferred. I didn't really eat sugar anymore. I was off of that, but I was enslaved to bondage of the sweet and fat together. So these keto treats, my kitchen was like an own chemistry lab that I had erythritol and stevia and coconut oil, and you can relate to this. We had the same kitchen, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely. The coconut manna was my binge food because it's got the sweet and the fat. I would go into my walk-in closet and hide from my family because I was like, I don't want to stop eating it. It was so messed up.
Absolutely. I had that. And so to me, it was coconut and the nut butters, but I would take the nut butters, add some cocoa in there, add some butter in there, and add some sweetener. And then I just making my own candy. And it just had a grip on me. It had such a hold on me. And so I was, stalled according to weight, but I looked good. I felt good. And so that wasn't really the issue. It was being in bondage and not being able to think straight without it, not being able to sit and have a movie without having my addictive snack. I had gotten that Christmas time, I had ordered sugar-free candy. And so like Russell Stover's, and they make all these candy for diabetics, right?
Yeah.
And so I was using the diabetic candy as like still in my food addiction. And the only way I could get it under control was the fasting. It's just like, this can't be, I want fasting to be a therapy in my life. I don't want fasting to be the only way that I can be sane because we have to eat, And so that was when I figured out I needed to find a sane way to eat that I could have control and not have food still be the dominant effect. And plus I always have this fear too, which I don't really have the fear anymore. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's like, I've been there before. If I have the same behaviors and I get on that same road, what's to stop me from becoming a size 26 and 300 pounds again? Not that those are the issues, but the issues is I'm not going to be around for my kids as good. as long, and I'm not going to feel as good. Like today we're headed to the lake. We're going to have a great time. I don't have fears about what I can physically do, so that was Carnivore was January, the 30 days, we do a World Carnivore Month, right?
Yeah.
January 2021. And so I still a faster. So I still had both of those things layering in together. And then I was getting good results. So that was kind of crazy because I had started there around 190 and throughout that year had gotten down pretty low, actually a little bit too low. I don't really want to get there again, but I had gotten quite lean. And so that was exciting. And my exercise was coming along. So the fasting and the carnivore combined turned out to be such a cool combination. But I figured out when I started talking about that and sharing my progress pictures and, because I was looking very muscular, I was really happy about all of that, that I started getting kind of a lot of trouble and flack for the fasting, the F word in carnivore.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I did. And I was sharing progress pictures and there were some groups that I got muted in because I mentioned fasting.
Oh no. Well, now it's popular. You brought it back.
I'm so excited because I met Bella and Raymond was on, and so I was like, ooh, this is a group that I can talk about it in. It's safe now. It's okay. And so I even got to lead on Reverse. I got Bella and Dr. Chafee and I got to do a clinic on fasting. And so I think we'll probably be doing something similar as we do more retreats and, as we do stuff with Reverse. And so you're right. So I was fortunate that it kind of came back into trending, that we figured out the right way to do it, the nourished way to do it, priming, making sure that you go through, and that if you're seeing any of these signs of the metabolic slowdown of thyroid issues falling apart, we're so wise. This is a fasting wisdom, and we actually even call it nourished fasting. So we know we've got the nutrition right because we're carnivore. So we know we've got the fats and the proteins that we need. And then we can kind of watch for those other things that are starting to fall apart, because you need to feel good during the fast. And you're right. Fasting is kind of in right now. People are doing fat fasting, sardine fasting, I'm water faster. I'm all about water fasting. I'm not into those other modalities, but I think that they could be, beneficial. I see people getting benefits from them. But for me, you're right. The fact that it's becoming a safe place now for all kinds of topics in carnivore. We're becoming less like controlled, and like the conversation must be like this.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm really grateful, because there are times that it seems like it's going in a way that I don't want to be associated with it. It's like, I don't want to push someone out because they don't look like this.
Yes.
I was nervous to post about me eating sourdough bread. I was like, okay, like who's going to send me a message? But thankfully no one sent it to me. And I think it's because I really presented it in the way to say, like, this is my choice and I don't want to be in a label. But I still am like 98% carnivore. But I'm glad that it has opened up, and I'm glad that you found your niche is fasting, and you found a perfect place to do it. So are you still a coach?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes. So my coaching was mostly I did like an apprentice with Raymond for about 6 months. We team coached together. And so that's kind of how that's been going, and so just getting in that experience. But I have so much to learn, Rebekah. So my wheelhouse for sure is weight loss, fasting, just encouragement on the carnivore journey, cravings, just giving people the recipes, the tools that they need to be successful through that. But I have so much to learn. I learned so much from you. Like, I don't know. I think that as coaches, we're constantly on that knowledge quest. And then when we have somebody, like I've had so many people lately that have come to me with histamine issues, and so much that I've learned from you, and I've been able to hook them up with Billy Doe meats. And then we've been able to really get in there and, problem solve this and figure out how they can transition. And your story is so inspirational too, because like you've healed so much that you're not in that spot yet. But we do, as carnivore coaches, sometimes we get people that are in a really tough spot with healing. But just to me, I think of myself as a hub for the resources. Like, okay, I cannot fix you. I can never fix anybody anyways, but I can connect you with this and connect you. I'm like a connector. And so I can connect people with the tools and the things that they need. And if that's me and they want to stay with me and we want to work out together, then that's a beautiful thing. And if that's someone else, then that's a beautiful thing. I have no ego about whatever is going to help you heal is what I want for my clients.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I think what most people need is someone to listen, walk alongside them, and provide the tools. Like, I am not going to do the job for you. I can provide guidance, I can provide my insight, some structure and resources. And sometimes that looks like, like if I have a client who needs a shoemaker protocol, I don't know that yet. I'm planning on learning it, but I'm going to recommend you go see Judy Cho or someone who can walk you through that. And so we all have our niches, but just the fact that you've been through what you've been through in your relationship with food, that's invaluable for people to be able to confide in you if they're struggling with their relationship with food, and you're not going to judge them. Even more, you have the capacity to understand and to guide them out of that because you did that.
Yes.
That's powerful. I know a lot of my clients come to me because, for things that I went through, they can't gain weight. A lot of people are trying to lose weight, but I was the opposite. Or just they saw every doctor under the sun. They tried everything and nothing worked and they feel hopeless. So I think it's beautiful that we use our hardest trials and our weaknesses in our lives, and it turns into good for others. That's just the most amazing thing.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. No, it feels wonderful. It's an honor to be a part of that process and to be part of discovering and kind of learning together. We're almost coaching each other in a lot of ways, but it's true. And for me too, having, so my kids are ages 10 through 20. And so I'm kind of navigating that road because so many of us are in the family and they're trying to figure out, how do I meal plan? How do I get more into my kids? Kind of navigating those roads as well has been, just wonderful that I've been able to, and Joel has been able to. We both are very carnivore focused with the kiddos. We don't require, they're not carnivore. They're, because we don't control what happens when they're at other people's houses or at other people's parties or at, we didn't take it to that level. We're like, I'm going to send you your, stuff with you. Although I do, and their friends all know it. And so their friends, when they're at our house, they'll be like, they'll want cheese kinds of things. Like, yeah, that's fine. They'll know, they'll want chicken wings. They'll want bacon. They'll want, so they do kind of understand that the treats at the Harveaux house are a little different.
Awesome. That's so funny. That's awesome. Yeah. So you shared a little bit about growing up in the church and how it actually fed into your addiction with food, which is really not just unfortunate, like it's very sad to me. How did you manage to hold on to your faith coming out of that? Did you recognize like this is a wrong done by humans, not by God? Did you have to separate from religion? What happened with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been a lot more independent in my thinking along those lines. And it continues to be an issue, Rebekah, because like even I see it as a drug. So it's still, I still have a lot of fight and angst in me and like frustration. And so I have had to lead by example. That's all we can do. Right. That's the only thing we can do is lead by example and lead in love. And that's it. And so my statement about that, like we just had this big potluck actually for the kids, a homeschool thing that they're in. And I brought jerky, like tons of jerky and sour cream to dip the jerky in as the dip. And it got devoured. I mean, there was no sign of that. And so I'm definitely known for, I'll bring a huge 9x13 of bacon, poof, gone, and so I definitely kind of show up in that way. But even sometimes at their school events, candy will be used as a retreat for knowing the certain fact. If they learned this fact of this or that, then candy gets thrown at them. And so I'm in a struggle with it myself. But I think that just It's as carnivore is becoming more popular, there actually is in my homeschool group another carnivore mom that's one of the tutors there, and she fasts. And so like just kind of building my connection with her, just telling our stories, I think is the most powerful part of it.
Yeah.
As far as, where it is to change that tide in the organizations, man, we're a long ways off from that. I think crowding out is the way to do it. And that's
I
how
agree.
I'm a big crowd out person with the diet as well. If somebody is able to go 100% in prime and use
Mhm.
that as the ultimate crowding out, I support that. And that is, I think, the best way to start. But if someone's on a different path where they just mentally just can't even deal with it, then
Yep.
just get more fatty meat in there, get more meat in there, crowd it out, crowd it out, crowd it out.
Yeah.
And so I think that in like the church culture, that's going to be something really similar. It's just going to be enough of us kind of walking in that freedom and crowding out the potlucks with better options, contributing our thing, bringing our thing, and just sharing our story from a place of love, I think is like the only thing that we really can do at this point.
Yeah.
But the more it spreads and the more people get healthy, then hopefully it'll be more popular in like the leaders themselves as well.
Yeah.
And they can start just being brave enough to take a look at your relationship with food. I think even calling that into question, because it is very spiritual. Fasting is very spiritual. And, these are kind of denying yourself. I don't like the way that sounds, but I think you know what I mean. Having the
Yeah.
discipline to choose the best for yourself. And so you're kind of taking a fast from all these
Yeah.
foods damaging you, that it is a very responsible, honoring thing to do for your body and in your faith.
Yeah. Denying the flesh. And I think it's a perfect term because it's the truth.
Mhm.
At our church, which we love our church, there's been so much fruit from the church that we're attending. And honestly, it's the only church that I've seen fruit from myself. And I'm so grateful for it. But there was a Sunday a couple months ago where the pastor was just talking about, if someone was just delivered from drugs, would you, is he able to go do some drugs and then just not, he said something along the lines of that. And he's like, of course not. And then like following that statement, they made announcements and he's like, oh, and this upcoming Sunday is our cereal fellowship. Like they all just bring cereal. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I really debated. I haven't said anything to him yet. I'm still debating saying something because there are obese people in our church. They were the ones that were like, oh, yay, the cereal luncheon or whatever. And I'm like, this is a drug and
Yep.
these people are sick and it's definitely a problem. And so, like I said, I still haven't said anything, but it's upsetting to me. And it's like, okay, well, how can I help? And I think it is just by sharing the message and like, hey, guess what? God delivered me, but I also had to make some changes with my nutrition. Like God is the healer, but meat is the medicine. Like food is medicine or poison. And that's just something that a lot of people have a blind eye to, not just in the church, but in schools everywhere. But I would expect it to be noticed in the church. I would expect it to be brought out like this is a problem. This is a crutch. Sickness does not come from God. So yeah, I'm glad that you can think for yourself and that you haven't turned away from God and all of that. I think a lot of people turn away from God when the church does something that's wrong, but those are human beings, not God. And I'm just grateful to hear that. That's awesome.
Lack of
So,
information. And I was thinking the same thing about like our military and about because these are all kind of institutionalized settings or whatever. And so just thinking about like with Philip's story of being out there and being in such traumatic, horrible circumstances and getting malnutrition on top of it. And
right.
so, yeah, it's just all of these avenues, like increasing the education, upping the IQ, because we're at the 5% of the IQ of true nutrition right now. And I don't mean to sound haughty or whatever, but it's just the truth that they are. I'm trying to think of what Dr. Berry says. It might be uneducated or uninformed, and so it's nothing. It's not like There's no moral issue about it right now. We just
Right.
don't have the correct information out. And like, I see a future for your church of a bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
When they're
And
like,
they do have,
a
they have tons of meat. They do grill out, like the normal ones have tons of meat options. I know they do that. They have like International Day where they'll do dishes from different countries. Our church loves food, but the fact that they had a cereal day just really upset me.
I would be going ballistic too. And so I would probably come to cereal day with a nice eggy, bacony, cheesy casserole.
So I've gotten to know you even better in this video. If there were someone that came to you and they were just starting carnivore, what would your advice be for them?
Yeah, definitely to immerse in the community. I think on Instagram, that was my entry to all this. I was really I was following you early on, your dramatic story. I just cried every time I saw it. Such a healing story. I was following Brett Lloyd and JC, the lady carnivore. And so like finding these accounts that you can relate to that seem like somebody that gets you. Brett got me and JC got me because they spoke to mental health and they spoke about it boldly and brazenly from their perspective. And yeah, and I haven't been as out there in my journey about that, but those were the accounts that to me, I was like, oh, okay, they totally get me. And so I think that just finding that community, like through YouTube, Instagram, and then we have such awesome online communities too now. We have, Steak and Butter Gang and Kelly's doing them. And, we have all these awesome ways that you can actually see each other on Zoom calls and you can see other people that are doing it. And so I love when people are in that like consideration spot. They're just looking and they're thinking. And so just keeping yourself in that spot, keeping yourself curious and open. And then absolutely, I think even like one coaching call can be tremendous kind of a transformation to get you going on the right path, because it helps so much to know that you're doing it with other people and it's growing and growing. And there are so many other people that are really feeling amazing, looking amazing, surrounding yourself, seeing those healing stories and tweaking it because it is very individual. And so I want people to just feel confident to take their own version with it, to take crowding out perspective with it, to step into it at the pace that they are able to. But I think that at some point going all in carnivore is a really good idea to give yourself that 30 to 90 days. I'd really say 90 days before you can start feeling that transformation really take hold. So it's a lot to ask of somebody. My 30 days turned into now I'm almost at 3 years. And so that was weird and unexpected. I was like, okay, how did that happen?
Yeah, same here. Yeah, definitely. It goes by fast when you're living your life and you feel good. It's like, wow, this is what I want to do. Like even the fact, like I've started to introduce a lot of other foods. I can eat popcorn, I can eat sourdough bread, I can eat fruit, but what I crave every day is meat. I don't necessarily crave those foods. They're nice for variety, or like after a heavy lift, I can handle some carbs, but I can't sleep if I don't get my meat and fat. And that's because my body has been healed and it is nourished and it knows what it needs to thrive.
Absolutely.
And I don't think you know that. Like you said, it doesn't take hold after just 30 days. It starts to take hold maybe after 90 days. I totally agree.
It's the beginning, and there's so much support, and it can be economical. You don't have to do fancy pants. You should pay attention if your body's reacting and responding. Maybe do have to go the expensive road to start with. But I love the triple B&E approach. Like this is so simple. 4 foods, beef, bacon, butter, eggs. You can make so many things out of those foods. You can stay satisfied. To me, it's like the huge benefit of carnivore is you don't have to be hungry anymore.
Yeah.
So when you're eating foods that don't have the nutrition, you're still hungry, and it causes your blood sugar stuff to go up and down, and there's no end. It's like, to me, I would tell a beginner, do you want to get off the roller coaster? because you can.
That's
I
so
want
good.
them to have hope that there is another life beyond that roller coaster. And so there is some faith and some trust involved in it. But just to give it an earnest shot, because you might feel like a different person, and we can help you tweak the challenges along the way. So people are so helpful. Anybody that reaches out to me on Instagram with a question, I answer. I think you do too. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
oh, I have all the secrets, but they're behind this coaching wall. Like, no, like if you have questions, I'll probably leave a voice memo. I'll be like, look at this or this. And
yeah, as much as possible.
yeah. The spirit to me, the spirit of our carnivore community is incredibly helpful. If you're coming curious and willing to change, like, you have an army of people willing to help you and support you. So I think it's a very supported space as well. People just are brave enough to ask the questions. We love answering them. Yeah.
I think that the community advice is huge. I just think isolation breeds destruction, and in any setting, for mood disorders or sticking with a way of eating, it's just, we need a support system. And I also like that you said, find some people that you can relate to, because there are a lot of different opinions in carnivore. And I remember I had to stop listening to podcasts. I had to stop going into the Facebook support group that I was in, because I would get so triggered and be like, am I doing the wrong thing? Do I need to switch this up? But that was my personality. And so to just find some people who made good sense to me and weren't going to, slap my hand if I wasn't doing it exactly their way, was the key. Like Dr. Ken Berry, Eric Westman was my doctor in Durham, and they just laid foundational truths for me to figure it out on my own. And that's so key.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, this has been incredible. You are incredible. I'm so grateful for your story, your testimony. I'm grateful for who you are. I'm grateful that you get to be happy and healthy for your kids and for your husband and for yourself and all the other people that you help. You are really an inspiration to me very much. I didn't know you had your kids in your late 30s. So immediately I'm like, well, I'm 30. And I was worried. I was like, I don't want to look old when my kids are like 20, but look at you. Like, you look incredible. So that's inspiring for me. So I'm excited to see you at the retreat. I'm really excited.
I can't wait to see you. Yeah, I'm having so much fun. So yesterday, Carson and I were sword fighting. We were axe throwing. He's
oh my gosh.
He's my little buddy, and but I can chase him around the yard. I can jump on the trampoline, like all of these things that we're free to do when we have our healthy bodies and when our nutrition is going well. And I am so excited that I get to see you too. This next retreat's going to be incredible. This has been a huge part of my development. It has been the people that I met at your retreats, the community that I built at your retreats, the knowledge that happens there. So these connection opportunities are incredible. How are we doing? Are you getting close to sold out? Like, what's the latest?
We're more than halfway full. So I booked the large cabin and then the cabin across the street, which is slightly less people. It's like half the capacity. So I still have that one to fill. But I'm only like, we have months to fill this. Yes. So I'm very confident that it'll fill up. I'm so excited.
I love it. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Emily. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you have a wonderful day at the lake and your friends, and I'll talk to you soon.
Beautiful. I love you.
I love you too. Thanks. Bye. Hi, you guys. So my fall retreat is more than halfway booked. I know that you guys may have already heard of it. We're going to have a dream team of special guests. We have Ken Berry, Maria Emmerich, Kelly Hogan, Neisha Berry, and Lisa Wiedemann. So we're all going to be together. This is going to be invaluable fellowship, breakthroughs, learning, eating the highest quality, best, most delicious meats like Billy Doe meats, North Star bison. I'm going to be making my carnivore treats, carnivore brownies, carnivore carrot cake, carnivore ice cream. And then of course we'll have Maria with us. So she's going to do some cooking with us. It's going to be so awesome. For those of you who don't do sweeteners, we will be with Emily Harveaux and Kelly Hogan as well. They don't do sweeteners. Lisa doesn't do sweeteners. So we're going to have options for everyone. It's just going to be absolutely incredible. So we're in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, October 11th through 16th. This is when the fall colors are peaking. The weather is phenomenal.
If you're interested, please email me directly at rebecca@tailoredketo.health. I'll send you the information. I'll send you an invoice when you're ready to pay. The only way to reserve your spot is with payment, and then you'll be locked in. I hope to see you there.